We can say it's coming up. Yeah.
Because I need to go to Superdrug to pick up little travel size vegan cosmetics and toiletries and stuff like that. So I need to get there. I don't know, some point in the next few days. Anyway, welcome back everybody to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong. This is a podcast where two exes who are still really good friends talk about whatever is on their mind that week. We don't really have a script, we don't have a structure, we just get together and talk. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing okay. I was just thinking as you were doing that, you know, on the maintenance phase, how Michael Hobbs does that thing where he echoes what Aubrey's saying.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking, what if I started doing that? You were like, if you said, we're two X's, and I went, two X's. And like after, but not everything you say, just some words.
Yeah,
it's
we could try that.
Should
we do
entertaining when they when he does that?
Let's try it. Why not? Why not just try it live? So, welcome everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong. This is a podcast where two exes who are still good friends talk about whatever is on their mind that week.
On our minds.
My name's Josh. I'm one of the hosts.
Josh.
And the other one is Sean. How are you, Sean?
I'm Sean.
But would I do it too? Or it only works one way around, doesn't it?
Yeah, it only works one way around, like Michael does it to Aubrey. Anyway.
Okay. That's good, actually, because I forgot to say my name in the first intro that I did. So there we go. Perfect opportunity.
That we just, when you were coming on, we were chatting about going to Superdrug to buy toiletries for travel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was looking at you get the little travel size ones. I mean, this would be a thing all around the world, right? It's not just a UK thing.
Yeah.
Like
since 9/11, when toiletries had to be under 100 mils, or I don't know it's going off on a tangent already. But why the hell does the US, the only country in the world that still uses imperial measurements like ounces and stuff like the? Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Because they don't measure stuff in milliliters.
Well, what do they do in Australia? Milliliters.
Milliliters. Everywhere in the world does milliliters, except America, anyway.
And so when I was in Superdrug the other day looking for like sunscreen, what do you call it? Sun
cream.
Sunscreen. So in Australia it's sunscreen, but I think
it's sunblock in Australia.
No.
Yeah, in Australia people say sunblock.
Sunblock and I think that's a different thing to, like, there's sunscreen lotion to screen out the sun. There's sunblock to block it out. And in England, people say sun cream.
I don't know. I've got an Australian passport too,
And when
I reckon people say sunblock.
But when I was young and people weren't as savvy about skin cancer and the ozone layer, it was called suntan lotion because you would go sun tanning and you'd put it on, and often you would wear ones that would accelerate the burn.
Like just to slap a bit of olive oil on.
Well, I think coconut-based things were very popular. I can always remember going to the beach in the 70s and the early 80s and everybody smelling like coconut oil.
Yeah, like pina colada.
Yeah, and... Yes. Anyway, oh my God, tangent upon tangent already. But going and looking at the little miniatures that are flight safe or flight allowed, they also sell miniature empty ones that you can fill up with your own products, but they're the same price as the ones with products
have products in them.
Sometimes more expensive than the one with product in it.
Yeah,
and it's just, I suppose, if you had a very particular brand of something, like you used a certain shampoo because of eczema, or you would have to buy the empty one. But I was like, that's not really an incentive. Like if it's the same price.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a very niche. This discussion, I suppose, has a very niche appeal. But you and I have been vegan a long time, long before it was easy to get a lot of vegan toiletries. Like the world we live in now, especially in the UK, I think we're very spoiled here with places like Superdrug, where I would say over 60-70% of what they produce, their own brand stuff, is vegan. And we'll say so on the container. But that wasn't the case, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, it was really, really, really difficult to find vegan toiletries and cosmetics. And we used to do that all the time. We used to get our own containers and fill them up with shampoo, with face wash, with hair
Yeah.
cream and stuff like that, because it was so difficult to find stuff
So,
back then.
so when you're traveling, I suppose we should give some context here. We're not
Oh,
just
yeah.
talking about travel,
Not
just
as an abstract.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we're all going on a summer
Summer
holiday.
holiday. Summer
No,
holiday.
so there's this place that I've wanted to go to for a long time, and I don't think I've ever told it on the. Have I told it
The
on the?
story? No, I don't
Yeah,
think so.
but I'll tell it another time. I mean,
No,
maybe
you
I'll
should
tell.
tell it
Well,
now.
maybe I'll tell it when we get back. Would
Okay,
you?
fair
Well,
enough.
I'm sure I've mentioned it.
I don't think
Right?
you have. No.
Anyway, long story longer. We're going to Italy. So Hill and I are going for a bit longer, and Josh is going to come for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And so we need travel-sized personal
Toiletries.
care products.
Uh-huh.
How long are you going to be away for?
Oh, I know where this is going. I'm only going to be away, let's see, 4 nights.
How do you know where this is going?
Well, I think I know where this is going.
Why? Tell me
I
where
was
you
just,
think it's going.
I think it's going wrong. I think this is just going to how much like shit you need to take traveling with you when
Well,
you go away.
yeah, but I'm not complaining for once. I'm just saying, how much do you think you need to take? Like, if you take a little 100 ml shampoo,
Yeah.
is that enough for 7 nights?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I only wash my hair like twice, 3 times a week. So,
I thought you were going to
you know,
say 2 or 3 times a day,
two or three times a year.
an hour.
And so yeah, like shampoo is
You've
not
got to clean out the bird's nest, Sue.
uh-huh. And but yeah, like I have to take, and it's not just the toiletries as well, it's all my medications. I also am so like, I always, no matter how stringent I think I'm going to be with packing, or how strict I mean I'm going to be with packing, I always take about 4 or 5 like t-shirts or shirts that I never wear,
Yeah.
because I always think, oh, I should take something a little bit smart in case I end up going somewhere, fancy. Um, but
And,
yeah.
and what about this? Is this a dilemma? I take multivitamins or multivitamins, as you might say, here in the UK,
Hmm.
if you're a real British person, unlike me. But I don't, obviously some of them come in big, like I take these vegan
Hmm.
Omega. Have you seen
Hmm.
these? These vegan Omega gummies, they're like massive.
Yeah.
Um,
But the gummy, anyway, yeah, no, go on.
what?
No, I was just going to go off on a tangent about the price. The gummies are so much more expensive than the capsules.
Yeah, but the Holland and Barrett always have like the buy one, get one for a penny, buy one, get one half
Yeah, but
price.
they have it on the capsules too. So anyway.
I don't know that you get 60 in here, and the capsules you don't get 60.
Yeah, but you have to,
Oh my
anyway.
God, you stay on track, please.
Yeah, all right.
So I can't, obviously, we're going on Ryanair, which is a budget airline, where you get one miniature backpack, like it's a backpack that belongs to like Minnie Mouse or something, right? It
Hmm.
has to be 40 centimeters by 20 by 30. It can't be bigger than that, or they charge you something like £120.
And you know that the cabin crew get bonuses
Yes,
based on how many people they issue like oversized tickets to.
yes, yeah. So I obviously can't fit that plus my prostate medication plus everything. Is it problematic if I decant what I need for the week of all of my different tablets and medications and vitamins into an unmarked container? Is it going to be weird if I have all these different array of pills
No,
that
I
are
don't.
not?
No,
Do you know
I
what I
don't
mean?
think so. But you've got to be careful that some of those vitamins and other supplements, they don't mix well together. I've made that mistake in the past, like putting flaxseed oil capsules in with vitamins, and then they all just turns into some horrible, like smelly.
Or they stick
Like,
together, right?
yeah,
Like,
they stick together,
but
and
I
yeah,
was thinking of getting one of those like pill
yeah.
cases.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, get one of those, like Monday, Tuesday,
Yeah, but
Wednesday
instead of putting all of Mondays in one, I'll put the week's worth of these in one.
in one. Yeah,
So
so
to
it's
keep,
separating. You
yeah,
got to keep it separated.
you got to keep them separated. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. But I get so
Emotional, baby.
Yeah, every time I think of poo. No, I get so overworked and I overthink these sorts of things. Like, I've been planning this trip for months. Like, not only, like, I have to save up for it and pay it off
Hmm.
and plan it, but I'm, like, looking at Google Street View of, like, what it will look like when I arrive to where
I
I'm
know,
going.
I know, because the other day I was on the phone to you and I was asking about the ferries or the boats or whatever you have to get and the trains, and you were like, you went into such a level of detail, and you were like, well, you can get this train, but you know, it's better if you download the Trenitalia app, because that way you don't need to validate your ticket at the station, it just automatically validates. And the level of detail you were going into, I was
Well, I've
quite
got it. I've got all the apps. Like, now I've got my train ticket because we have to catch a train from Genoa to, a village to get the ferry around to this where we're staying, and I've planned it all. Like, I've planned everything. I've got the train tickets. I mean, Hill and I have got a Google map with all sites of interest and restaurants marked on it that we can just look at it on our phones,
Mhm,
so if we're walking around, we can look and see if there's anything nearby that we had sort of pre-decided we were interested in.
mhm.
Um, but I'm very interested. What do you know about Genoa?
Not a lot. I'm the opposite. I'm very, very unprepared. I have not looked into train tickets, apps, bus tickets, ferries, anything like that. That's why I called you the other day in a bit of a flap thing, you know, sort of saying, how am I gonna get there? But what do I know about Genoa? Genoa, well, Genova is what the Italians call it, right? Genova?
I don't know if I thought that's what we called it. I
I
can't
don't know
remember.
because when you buy, well, I don't buy it, but when you see, I used to buy it before I was vegan. You used to buy pesto,
Yeah,
in the supermarket, like basil pesto. I'm sure it says on it, on some of them, like some of the brands will say pesto genovese or something like that. And I was like, oh, well, that must be the Italian.
okay.
So anyway, we don't know what the place is called. But I do know that it's where Christopher Columbus was from.
Yes. But,
And
when I went to Las Palmas, like, when I went is that the
oh, and the
name of the
Canary Islands.
yeah, like, there was a house there that he lived in as well. He must have
Yeah.
had houses everywhere, but I think, yeah, the one in Genoa was the one where he was born or raised. But
Hmm.
also, like a lot of these things with history, they don't know if it's the real house. Like, they've just assigned
Right.
it
Yeah.
because it was typical in the area, and it's
Yeah.
probably the one. They don't know, but it's a
Yeah.
tourist attraction.
It's the birthplace of focaccia.
Uh-huh.
It's what else do I know about? Oh, isn't carbonara? Isn't that from
Oh, I don't know.
Genoa, Genova?
I
I
don't know
think it
about
might
that.
be. And I didn't know this until just the other day. You told me it's got lots of funicular railways.
Yes, there are funiculars because it's quite hilly and it's very densely concentrated. I think it has one of the largest, or the largest remaining medieval city center in Europe.
Oh,
So
okay.
the old town, I think that's where you're staying on one of the nights that you're there. There
Hmm.
are all those narrow passageways in between buildings, so they're very and that's like they're full of shops and restaurants and bars, and it's quite large historic city center, and it's medieval. It
Hmm.
has I don't know if it's still operational, but it was up to a few months ago, the oldest, cinema in Italy is
Okay.
in Genoa, and, I'm excited about it. I was excited about going to see that biosphere thing with the
Hmm.
tropical plants in it, but I
Hmm.
think they've got birds in there,
Oh, really?
like captive flamingos or something.
Yeah,
So
that
I'm
puts
not
me off.
really into that, but it looked very
But
cool.
there is a botanical garden in the city centre which I'm going to go to. I don't think it's that big or anything, but um, yeah, I'm just looking forward to taking some good books and relaxing.
Yeah. So the place we're staying in, the town called San Frutuoso, doxing ourselves here, but I mean, I'll be there when this comes out. I'll
And,
be smack bang in the middle of my vacation if anyone
and
wants to
I'll be
send a
there.
drone
Yeah.
to spy on me. That we have some paddle boards. Have you ever used a paddle board?
Yeah, only in Australia. Um, so like a lot of, I don't know, paddle, the people say, Australians will all know what a paddleboard is. I don't know if British people would know.
It's a
Do you want
board
to?
that you paddle on.
I know. It's like a mini surfboard. You
Yeah.
can't really stand up on them
No,
unless you're like,
they're meant for standing up, aren't
yeah, but
they?
not people of our size.
Well, you're meant to stand on it and use a paddle to that, or you can kneel on it to do it.
Yeah.
But
But a lot of people just use them for like surfing waves in Australia.
are you going to try to use it?
I don't know. Maybe not.
I'm going to, and there's
I've got shark paranoia.
well, you'll be all right in this little
Did you
cove.
see? I didn't tell you this, but did you see that guy that was killed by a great white shark in the northern beaches last week in
No, I
Australia?
didn't notice that.
Oh yeah, a guy. I can't remember the name of the beach, but yeah, just that northern beaches between Sydney and Newcastle. A guy was killed by a great white, a really big, like I think it was about 5 meter, I think, great white
Oh,
shark. And in a weird twist of fate, he was a big a big name in the palm world.
oh,
Like,
okay.
because I know I've said on this podcast a lot of times before, I'm a big plant geek, but I'm particularly plant geeky when it comes to palms. And
Yeah.
so I'm on palm tree forums and stuff like that. And he was a really big sort of celebrity within that world. So all the forums were full of memorials to him. So
Did they go dark for the night?
no, no.
Dude, if you went on, well, sorry to that person and their loved ones, but just
But
sounds so.
it just fuels my shark paranoia.
Do you?
I've told the story about the shark in New Jersey, haven't I, on the podcast
Yes.
about yeah.
Did you? If you went on Mastermind, would your specialty subject be palms? Could you? Do you think you would do really well?
No, because I am not very good at recalling information or knowledge on the spur of the moment.
Is there any subject that you think you could get away with getting like at least 50% of the
Like
questions
Sophie
right?
Tucker jokes by Bette Midler or something like that. Like,
I think because I was such a big Madonna fan when I was young, I
mhm.
think I could do Madonna trivia.
But if you could limit it to a certain period of her career, because like if someone asked you about stuff from her latest album,
Oh
you
yeah,
wouldn't really
I
know that.
wouldn't. I probably know some of the collaborators, but I wouldn't be
Yeah.
as familiar with the album tracks. But there's a lot of stuff that I would know. I think I would.
Hmm.
Like I was listening to a podcast with some, I don't know, some drag queens or something who were doing a Madonna quiz,
Hmm.
and I knew every question.
Hmm.
That even some of the ones these queens who said they were big Madonna fans didn't know. So anyway,
Okay.
here's a visual thing for sorry to people just listening, but there's the image of where we're going.
Hmm.
I'm very excited about that. Picture is from like the 80s.
Do you want to
Uh,
point out where we're staying so see people
well,
can
well,
send them a
you
cruise
can't,
missile?
you can't see it here.
Oh, can you not?
It's back behind the camera on this side, and I'm very excited. But you know, like
Oh, are we not staying right on that little cove there?
no, that's like just behind here. Yeah, it's like yeah, we're in that cove, but it's
Okay.
like, what do you mean?
Well, you said
How after all the going on that I've done about this trip and sending you things and pictures of the Airbnb and everything, how would you not know?
I thought we were staying in that cove, but then you just said it's back behind the camera. And I
Yes,
was like, which
yeah,
camera? The camera that's taken the photo of that postcard?
yes, yeah.
So
What
that's
other
not in the
camera would I be talking about?
I don't know, the camera on your laptop.
I don't know what's going on.
Oh, anyway.
Yeah, like just see where my finger is down here.
Right.
Yeah, like just
Off
like
camera. It's
yeah,
off camera, not
yes.
behind the camera.
Well,
Okay, that's
the
fine.
camera would be here. The camera would be here facing that way. So it's behind whoever took this, right? It's probably taken from where we're staying, right?
Okay.
Because there's like the main cove and then there's a little miniature
Ah,
cove.
okay. Right, okay.
But do you know what's funny? This came into, this wasn't sent to me. It was given to me by somebody back in 1983, I imagine, because that's the date on this. This was sent to somebody. And I was thinking the other day, I wonder where those people are. Like somebody found this in a trash can and gave
Hmm.
it to me.
Hmm.
And it was sent. Can I say this person's name who it was sent to? I mean, this is from
Yes, but I don't know.
42 years ago.
Right.
Okay, Fiona Cumming, and the hilarity of it with all of my problems with my eating disorder. Fiona Cumming worked at the Nutrition and Dietetics Department of the Queensland Institute of Technology, and it was sent to her at work. And I looked her up the other day, and I think she's still alive, and she was like a really renowned nutritionist.
You should reach out to her.
But I'm also curious who sent it to her, because it just says greetings from Sunny Italia, and it just has MHB as the
Okay.
initials. And I was like, I wonder how I would find out. Yeah, should I reach out to Fiona?
Yeah, I think you should, and just tell her the whole story.
And like, so I've kept this
And find out who
postcard.
the MHB is.
I've kept this postcard for since I got it. So like, what's that, 40 something years?
Yeah.
And I always dreamt of going to this place. It's the only thing from my childhood that I still own. And this is it. And I'm very excited
And
to
QIT, Queensland Institute of Technology, became QUT,
QUT,
didn't
yeah.
it? Which
And
is University of
the
Technology.
stamp, what do you call it? The frank when they
Postmark?
postmark, it was actually done in Portofino. So they posted it from Portofino, which is just
Okay.
around the headland.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. And I don't know, should I take the postcard? I'm thinking of putting it in like a plastic bag so it doesn't get wet or anything.
Yeah, that'd
That's
be a
another
nice
thing. I'm
idea.
paranoid about going on the boat with my like iPad or
Well, the other thing that you sent me some information about the Airbnb where we were staying the other day. The other thing is it said it had not only paddle boards, it also has a rowing boat underneath the Airbnb in a little archway. And I'm like, I don't know whether I'm brave enough to take a little rowing boat out into the cove or not.
well, the cove is not massive. It's not like the Bay
No,
of
but
Bengal or something.
it's just the Mediterranean Sea.
But if you just went out like 10 meters, and if it's got an
Yeah,
anchor, you could throw the anchor down and just sit out on the boat. And
maybe.
I probably wouldn't jump out of the boat into the water because I would be scared of not being able to get back into the boat.
Right.
But I'm going to go
I'm so
swimming.
scared of sharks. I'm so scared of sharks. I have I think it's a perfectly rational fear of jumping in the ocean with sharks and
But what
stuff.
do you
Like,
think the odds are of
I
shark
know the odds
attacks?
are, I know that the odds are so slim, but still, I
And
just
what do
feel.
sharks do? Like, what are their migration habits? Or do they stay in certain waters all year round?
I think this depends on the species and depends on the population,
Why
but
don't you do some research into Mediterranean shark movements?
maybe. But well, I did. When I can't remember if I also mentioned this on the podcast when I told the story about the shark in New Jersey. But did I tell the story about going to Sicily with my boss?
Yes.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
how I had like shark paranoia, and then when I got home that night, I looked, and the east coast of Sicily is a renowned great white breeding ground.
Picture it.
Um,
Sicily,
hmm
1943.
yeah, picture it, Portofino, 2025. So yeah, I'm not sure I'll be going in the boat or not, or on the paddleboard.
Oh, yeah.
I might just dip a very pale English toe into the water.
You're going to have to go in. I think if the water's warm enough, and it's going to be 22, 23 degrees, so it's not going to be super hot, but I think the sea temperature is still warm at this time of the year from being
Yeah,
heating up all summer. I think it'll
yeah.
be lovely. Anyway, I'm going to go in the water. I've bought
Okay.
like these wet shoes, like these reef shoes. They're like wetsuit material with rubber soles, so I can try and stand on the paddleboard, or I
Are
wanted
you,
to use them to walk on the pebbles and the rocks.
are you bringing a modesty blues, Sue?
No, it's going to be tits to the wind, so tits to the wind. Hey, do you changing tactic here? When you grew up, tell me what would happen? What was the process if you lost
Sorry, can I just say, is it changing tactic or changing tack?
changing direction,
Changing subjects?
changing topics?
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry, go on.
My God, the level of
Pedantry.
pedantry, pedantry of the penis. When you were young, tell me the process of what would happen if you lost a tooth. If a tooth fell out, what would your family do? Or what would you
Uh,
do?
well, I mean, they would tell me that the tooth fairy would come in the night, and then I think we would wrap up the tooth in a little tissue,
Yeah.
put it under my pillow, and then in the mornings I would find, I don't know, like 50p or something.
Okay.
Um, that's my generalized memory of it. Why?
I
What would
think I
happen with
think that
you?
was the same in Australia, but I found out something wild, which I never knew, that in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries or Latin countries, including Mexico, he'll confirm this for me.
Mm.
They had a tooth rat, so they had el
What?
ratón de los dientes, like the
Uh-huh.
rat of the teeth,
Yeah.
and they would do the same thing. That they would put the tooth under their pillow, and at night the tooth rat would come and take it and leave money or leave
Okay.
something or right?
Okay.
A rat. It's so weird to me. But
Okay.
then I
Have you
said,
looked into the history of this?
well, yeah, like it's
Why?
also
Why
in
it's a rat?
Spain and
Because
in
you'd think in a very Catholic country, you'd think they would have some sort of like saint, tooth saint or something. You know, like.
yeah. But also the like I found out that this rat has a name, but Hill doesn't remember it having a name. It was just the tooth rat. It was just the rat.
Mhm.
But it
Mm.
was El Raton Perez. And
Okay.
there are like storybooks. There was a movie made about this rat, like an animated movies in the 2000s, but it goes back obviously generations.
Yeah.
And there are like little kids' storybooks, nursery rhymes, songs about the rat. And I was like, how different can two things be that but also be quite similar? Like you put
Mm.
the tooth under your pillow, someone comes and gives, but one is like a rat and one is a
One's a
fairy.
fairy. Yeah.
How wild is that? And then while I was studying, doing my research on El Ratón de los Dientes,
Hmm.
Hill told me about, do I know about this thing from Catalonia? This this weird Christmas tradition, and it's a log, it's a piece of wood, and they draw a face on the end of it. Like they'll either stick googly eyes or a face and put a little hat on it, and it sits in the family home from December 8th until the 24th, and they feed it. Sometimes keep it under a blanket, and they feed it nuts and sweets in that period leading up to Christmas. It's called Caga Tio de Nadal. So Caga, Caga,
Yeah.
what does
But
that
doesn't
mean?
that mean like shit?
Yeah. So
Shit,
yeah,
Uncle Noel
of Christmas, yeah, of
of
Nadal.
Christmas.
Yeah, right? Like so they feed it nuts and then when it gets to Christmas, the family gets sticks and beat the log until it shits out their presents to make it shit out the presents. So
What
somebody sets
the
it up, the
hell?
presents, and if you Google this thing and you will see it, it is a real thing, and I think it still happens,
That is
and I
so
think it's
bizarre.
mostly in Catalonia. And then after you feed your uncle shit, your
Yeah, but
shit
when you say
uncle.
you feed it nuts and raisins, so what do you do with them?
Well,
Like,
it's like when people leave cookies out for Santa Claus.
okay,
An adult will take them.
okay.
So you feed it nuts and sweets. You then beat it with a stick. And then on Christmas, when you've all got your presents from it, you put the log on the fire and burn it and watch it burn and to keep you warm.
Hmm.
Is that the wildest tradition?
Hmm.
Caga Tio de Nadal.
That's
And
bizarre.
um and then like because then I was learning about like the tooth rat as well.
Hmm.
What is the weirdest thing that you had when you were growing up? Like,
Well, well, I mean, it depends a lot, doesn't it, on your sort of cultural or geographical experience. But I we used to have a Christmas tree every year, like a real
yeah.
tree. And now I look at that and I think that's bizarre. Like I absolutely hate that tradition of like
But
cutting down
it's
a
quite
living tree.
normalized though,
It's
isn't it?
normalized, yeah, but I suppose in other parts of the world it might not be. I don't know.
No.
To me, that's really bizarre, and I actually really dislike that destruction of natural. I mean, I know that Christmas trees are like a farmed resource; they're not natural exactly. But I just think it's such a sort of crime to cut down a living tree for no
Yeah.
particular reason. Um, I don't know
Did
what else. What other
I think I
bizarre?
talked on the podcast once about Easter and the weird
Yeah,
traditions of
like making an
Easter.
Easter bonnet and stuff, or
Yeah, but
making a nest for
yeah,
the.
but that's not like an English thing, is it?
Not really,
So
not that I know of.
yeah,
No.
in Australia when we were kids in the 70s and 80s, and I don't know if kids still do it now, but yeah, well, you would make a nest and you would either make it like from ripped up shredded newspaper or you'd buy a basket and put like tissue paper in it. But I think we were so poor we used to like roll a towel up and
Hmm.
like wrap the towel and make a nest shape out of a beach towel. And
Hmm.
then you'd go to bed and then you'd wake up and the Easter bunny would have come and left chocolate and candy eggs in your basket, in your
Hmm.
nest.
Hmm.
How weird is that? Like, what's the Easter bunny? I mean, I suppose it's to do with
Springtime and
spring,
fertility and stuff.
but
Yeah.
why is the Easter bunny responsible for eggs? And I suppose,
Where's the bunny getting the eggs from?
like,
Stealing them
it's
from.
so
Yeah,
bizarre. So, what
it's
did you get when you were a kid at Easter time?
just Easter eggs. That was it. But I don't think we never had any sort of ceremony around, you know, that. Like we didn't have to make a nest or make a bonnet or anything like that.
Yeah, and at school we would have the Easter bonnet parade or the Easter hat parade. So you would
Yeah.
have to make an Easter hat, and so it would be, I don't know, either cardboard or some if you had like if you were craftier or your parents got involved, it might be different materials.
But you were doing this in the autumn, right? Because Easter would happen during sort of like the autumn period in Australia when it's
Yeah,
starting to get cool,
yeah.
right?
I suppose so, but it was always hot in
Well,
Brisbane,
yeah, in
and so
Queensland, yeah.
you'd get like coloured foil, or you'd wrap like marbles or rocks in them to put in and pretend they were eggs, miniature eggs, in your hat. And then at my school, you would have to go out on parade, the parade ground or the cement area where everyone would go and meet, and walk around, and the I suppose the teacher or the head teacher would judge who had the best Easter bonnet, and you might win something. It's so weird, and I
Very weird.
thought that being in Australia in the 70s, the 80s must have come from the UK, but you didn't have stuff like that?
No, but I think Australia has got a lot of very odd, sort of old-fashioned traditions from the
Yeah,
UK, which no longer occur in modern society in the UK. But I think being, a colony of or a Commonwealth country, I think it held on to a lot of those British or English traditions for a lot longer than we did back here in the UK because that was a way of asserting their, ties to the British Empire.
yeah.
Because yeah, even today, actually, some of the school uniforms that kids wear in Australia look like they're from the 1950s or
Yeah, they're
something. They're
like
so old
Cambridge or
fashioned.
something, like straw hats or boater hats and things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Yeah, I would imagine it must have come from the UK because I mean, Easter happens in the autumn in Australia, so it sounds like a tradition that would have been imported from the UK, but who knows? Um, yeah, I wanted to talk about something just quickly because I know last week we talked a lot about The Biggest Loser,
Yeah,
and we talked. I went on my rant about reality TV, and we talked about the trainers, Gillian Michaels and Bob Harper. And because when we do these podcast episodes, Sean puts the little thumbnail image together to post with the episode, and so there's often a bit of back and forth between me and Sean about what should go on it or what I'd like to have on the image and that sort of thing. And we were getting the thumbnail ready for the Biggest Loser episode, and
hang on. Can I just say,
what?
you
What?
would think by how shit these thumbnails are that there wouldn't be much effort, but you've made it seem like we have a whole committee based on deciding what they look like, and they're actually really
They're not
not
that shit. Don't
well.
don't be so disparaging about your own work, Sue. Um, anyway, we were having a back and forth, and originally we didn't have Gillian and Bob on the thumbnail. And I said to Sean, I really think, given, that we talked a lot about The Biggest Loser, I really think we should have Gillian and Bob on the thumbnail. So he did, I think, one with them, but it was they just looked very innocent and sort of plain in the one. And I said, no, I think we need images of them like screaming at people and pointing and shouting. And then it sort of, and I think we ended up kind of somewhere in between with them. But I then sort of had this sort of moment of reflection on that, and I thought, well, because I rant and rave so much about how problematic reality TV is, I thought, I'm not justifying or defending Gillian's behaviour, because it was, when you look at it in a broader context, I don't think Gillian does have very good sort of politics. Like, she said a lot of stuff in the media. She's like said vile things about Lizzo and stuff like that. But I suppose, to give her the benefit of the doubt, I did say to Sean on the phone the other day, it's maybe not fair to characterize her as that horrible, screaming, shouting, mean trainer, when reality TV is so famously, it so famously misrepresents people and situations, that for all we know, she could have been the loveliest, sweetest trainer to those contestants, 23 and a half hours of the day. And of course, the production company only put in the bits on the show where she just loses her patience. She
Yeah.
could have been saying all those really lovely things. On balance, she probably wasn't, but we don't know that. So I then had a sort of crisis of conscience, thinking, well, is it fair to continue that characterization of her, even in this like little thumbnail image of a podcast that maybe 100, 150 people will look at. So it just, I don't know.
Also, you're trading by putting an image of her screaming on the thumbnail. You're trading in the similar sort of tactics that the show trades in, like the
Yeah,
exploitation of anger and fear and drama to
yeah,
try and get people to click on this video.
exactly.
So yeah, it's a fine line you're
It's
walking by even
it's
putting her
problematic,
on there.
and then of course there's the whole aspect of gender as well. When you bring that into it, the fact that she was a woman getting angry, it really feeds into so many problematic narratives in society, that I suddenly felt a bit bad. But yeah.
And talking about that thumbnail, because I always like to talk about Lady Gaga.
Hmm.
Um, do you know anything about Lady Gaga's fiancé?
Only, excuse me, only that he has a big house in Malibu.
Okay, so
He's
his
a tech bro or something, is he? Or
yeah, his name is Michael Polansky. I think he's actually 49 years old. Like, so he's a little bit older than her.
is he related to Zach Polanski?
No, and
You sure? You don't know that?
yeah,
He
his
might be.
father is like a writer, and his mum is like an academic. But he studied at Harvard, and he studied computer science and something else. Like, he's quite accomplished,
Mm,
and he made a lot of money. I think he's worth about double the money that Lady Gaga is worth. Like,
mm,
I think he's worth about $700 million or something. And I find it really interesting about, well, obviously how people can be so accomplished in so many different things. So like he was in hedge funds. He was in like started apps with people. He's worked for medical companies. He's now also sits on the board of Lady Gaga's makeup company. So he helps run that. He now is kind of unofficially, it hasn't been announced, but co-managing her. Like, he's being credited with being a big part of this big resurgence she's had and all of the success that she's had. Obviously, like, she's the main reason it's happening, but he's been
mm.
quite instrumental in steering that. And he's also co-written and co-produced songs on the new album. Like, he's
Oh,
writing
really?
songs with her. And all of that Harlequin album that came out around the Joker too, he was producing songs on that. How can I get exhausted just doing one thing? Like, I'm exhausted making this like low effort, no effort podcast. imagine doing computer science at Harvard and all that entails and running multi-million dollar businesses and startups and then helping run a makeup company that is worth hundreds of millions of dollars and then being creative and helping co-write and co-produce hit songs. Where do people get this? Is this in somebody or can you learn to be like this?
I think, I don't know, I think that a lot. Oh, it's just started raining here. Sorry to be all British. But I think that rich people don't have to bother themselves with all the minutiae of daily life, all the boring life admin that other people do. They don't have to go to work in the same sense that you and I have to. And not to diminish his talents, I'm sure he's an intelligent and talented person, but I just think that people are not starting from the same place that most
Yeah.
of the world has to start from to achieve that sort of thing. And yeah, I think
So do you think
if
without the privilege that he probably had, like his parents being able to send him to Harvard, do you think that a lot of this might not have happened?
yeah, and maybe that's not fair, but I do think that. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, like he's trained in like even things like coding or building websites or building computer systems. Like he physically does that work. He doesn't just pay other people to do it. So apparently, like, all of Gaga's digital rollout, for this album and these last few campaigns, he's been in charge of that. And he's helped co-produce the show. Like he's actually doing the physical work of like the technical work, the creative work, the business work, the business management work. He is doing that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. But I think there are a lot of people, even if given those opportunities, wouldn't produce at that level of
Right.
turnout. Where does that drive come from in somebody to want to, like Gaga referred to him as like a Renaissance man, which I suppose means somebody who does everything, right? Like is involved in all sorts of creative endeavors and is across the board. What stops you or me from doing 10 other jobs on top of what we already do?
Well, like I said, I think it's time. I think we don't have the time and energy to put into things like that. And that's not to say that, that's not to say that we would. But I think when you've grown up in a life of privilege, you probably have never had to do a lot of the things that you and I have to do in life. I would hazard a guess he's never had to file his own tax return. I'd hazard a guess that he's always had a family accountant and people that would do that for him. I'd hazard a guess that he's probably had a personal assistant or probably a team of personal assistants
Yeah.
for at least the last 10 years of his life. I don't know anything about him, so it's maybe not fair for me to
Well,
comment.
it's all speculation,
It's
isn't
all
it?
speculation, but yeah, I do think that when you've grown up with that level of privilege, but again, we have to check our privilege. We we have the privilege of being able to do this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, this podcast doesn't make us money. This podcast costs us money, not much. In case you couldn't tell. But we have the privilege, I mean, yes, we both work, but
Yeah.
we don't. Well, there'll be people in the world who don't have a fucking minute to do things of leisure. They
Yeah.
there are people that have no choice but to work 7 days a week, probably, like 12 hours plus a day.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Do
it's
you think that sort of privilege, like intergenerational wealth, do you think that privilege that's different from nepotism, right? Like what's your understanding of the definition of nepotism?
I don't think they're that distant from each other, actually.
No,
I
but they
think
are different
intergen
concepts.
they're different concepts, but they do intersect a huge amount, I think,
Yes.
because nepotism is just, being related to somebody with influence or fame and getting opportunities in life simply because of that fact, not
and
not
and
based on your
and
talent.
being considered undeserving of those opportunities. So, like Donald Trump's children being given positions in the cabinet
Yeah,
is nepotism because they only got it because of him and they are not qualified to do it.
yeah.
Like, that's really nepotism because, you could be, I don't know, like Madonna's brother-in-law, what's his name? Joe Henry.
Mhm.
Like, he would get gigs booked just off his own talent, not because of who he's related to.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. So he's getting opportunities and he's related to Madonna, but the two things aren't connected, right?
Mhm.
Whereas
Mhm.
Donald Trump's kids are getting these opportunities, they're undeserving of it, and
Yeah.
it's only because of him,
And not
right? And
just
the
yeah,
power and
yeah,
influence that he has. And so
yeah.
nepotism, like the etymology of it, it comes from an Italian word that I think means nephew. So it means, and I think it was mostly used to do with politics. So it was
Mhm.
a political term. So if I don't know, the mayor of an Italian town or something got his nephew or sibling or someone a job in that in the administration, and they
Yeah.
had no background in public policy making, no background in doing
So
that sort of work.
what is the Italian word, like nepotismo or something?
I can't remember. I
Uh,
didn't write
you
that down
hadn't
in my
you did not
notes.
do your research.
I did my research, but I didn't think you'd want to know the actual. Are you going to try and use it in San Fructuoso?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I've been brushing up on my Italian phrases.
so can you think of some examples of somebody who is related to somebody famous and they've been celebrated, but it's not because of who they're related to? I can think of somebody like, do you know how Beyonce has her kid on stage with her dancing?
I didn't know
Like,
that.
she's got a child called Blue Ivy, and Blue Ivy is one of the dancers in her stadium show, her tour,
Mhm.
and she's a teenager. So she hasn't done the training or put the time in or gone to dance school. I mean, she probably has as a child, but she has had that position of playing to like 80,000 people as a dancer
Mhm.
only because of her mother. Like, that's pure nepotism. Or Donald
Mhm.
Trump with his
But she is a
idiot
good
job.
dancer, is she? Like, but she must be a good
Yeah, but she
dancer.
got better in the public eye. Do you know what I mean? Like, she didn't come into it. Like, if you're dancing for Beyonce or Gaga, you need to come in at the top of your game to get that role.
Mm.
Like, they're not going to take you and go, well, tour with me for 3 years until you get to the level that I need. This
Yeah.
kid got that opportunity because her mum was the star of the show,
Yeah.
right? So that's that or Trump, to me, are clear examples of
Mm.
nepotism. Whereas
Mm.
somebody like Michael Polansky, like Gaga's fiance, I don't think the parents were in a related field. So that's more of an example of privilege,
Yeah.
right? Class privilege or wealth privilege. Can you
Yeah.
think of somebody who became famous and they
Yeah.
also have famous parents, but there was no level of nepotism involved? Or do you think
Well,
that just can't exist?
I don't know. Like I was just thinking of Tracy Ellis Ross,
Mhm.
and I liked her as an actor before I even knew that her mum was Diana Ross.
Well, yeah, I
And
knew of her for decades before I
yeah,
knew that.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And also, Diana Ross is a singer, musician, not an actor.
Well, she was an
Um,
actor as well. She
well,
was
yeah, but
in,
primarily she was, that was her first sort of
yeah.
vocation, wasn't it? Like music. But yeah, and so I don't know. I wonder. I mean, Tracy Ellis Ross is a great actor. So would she have made that? Would she have gotten to where she's gotten in her life if her mum hadn't been Diana Ross? Who knows?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Can you think of anyone that fits
Well,
in the category?
I don't know because anytime I do think of somebody, I like you. I'm like, well, I'm just supposing, like, I'm just trying to imagine,
Yeah, I mean
like,
it's
what
it's
would have happened to that
hypothetical.
person. So, someone like Jamie Lee Curtis
Mm,
is, I, s- she existed before we had the term Nepo baby or Nepo
hmm
baby, right? Like, she was famous, has been famous for a very long time. Now,
hmm
her parents are two of the most famous movie stars of all time, Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis.
mm,
And but when I was young, even though I think I knew, like, maybe, like, on the back of a cereal packet trivia, like, or a game of Trivial Pursuit, like, who are Jamie Lee Curtis's parents? I don't felt that it I don't know, like, it was unseen machinations that made her famous to me, not that it was just her parents. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Like, whereas now I can clearly see that Blue Ivy is on stage with her mum because her mum
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
Beyoncé.
Yeah.
But, like, what about somebody like, um,
But can I
R
just sorry, this is a
yeah,
bit of an aside, but did you have the rumor, which now I know turns out to be untrue, but did you have the rumor when you were growing up that Lily Tomlin was John Travolta's mum?
yes.
Where the
Or
hell did that come from?
or sister. I also heard sister.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because
Where
aren't
on
they, like,
earth did
similar
that come from?
age?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Lily's a bit older.
And is it because she
Uh,
looks like him, or is that what people thought?
I don't know. It's because she was in Greece. You know, Lily Tomlin's got like tiny role in Greece.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
What?
She's like, I haven't seen Greece in so
Are you
many
sure?
years. Yeah,
This is
she's like,
this
Google
thing
it, Google it. She's got like this tiny role in Greece where she's like one of the waitresses in the diner or something like that. Um, and but anyway, have you Googled it?
No, I'm searching.
Oh, okay. Um, but yeah, I don't know where on earth that came from and why everyone was so willing to believe it. But I mean, it was in
Okay.
pre-internet
Where
age.
did you get this information that Lily was in Greece?
She is. I've seen it. I've seen the scene of her in
It's
Greece.
this first result is no, L Lily Tomlin is not in Greece, but let me see.
Yeah, but it's just that's probably fucking AI generated, which is always bullshit.
Let me have a look here. Um, okay, this is, I think, where it gets confusing. In Greece, one of the waitresses is played by Ellen Travolta, the sister of John Travolta. She's the one who says, "Oh, there's
Uh,
Danny and Sandy."
yeah,
So I think she looks like
like Lily
Lily
Tomlin.
Tomlin, and so
Ah,
people assumed that the
Lily
urban
Tomlin
legend
was.
star, they were related or mother
So
or
Lily, are you
sister.
sure she's definitely not? And I'm gonna go. Hang on, I'm gonna do some live research
Okay,
because
so that's somebody said in this thread. Yeah, and somebody says she has a striking resemblance to Lily Tomlin.
oh, okay, all
I
right.
love how you was like so firmly standing 2 feet down that she was in it, and I was like, I don't think she was in it. It was
Um,
reverse nepotism. It was like,
well, if you're watching or listening, let us know if you heard that rumor when you were growing up.
so.
Um,
Do you
and
think
if you
that?
thought,
Do you think
hmm?
Rocco Ritchie? I mean, is that nepotism? That you know how he's like gone
Yeah.
to the University of what University of Arts is he going to in London? He went to what's the one
Oh,
in
did he
King's
go
Cross?
to? Yeah, didn't he go to St.
Yeah,
Martin's?
St. Martin's, and like now he's having like art shows where people are showing up to see his art.
Hmm.
Is that if that's in a different film field from what his mother, Madonna, became
Hmm.
famous for, is that nepotism or is that just privilege?
It's you can't. It's so hard to. It's impossible to know. I haven't seen his art, and I'm not. You know, I'm not educated in art, or I wouldn't know. I don't know. I think it's there's the whole thing of privilege as well. Like he would have had, every opportunity given to him growing up. Like he would have gone to incredible schools. He would have had incredible people around him. So it's not just who you're related to, but it's who they're friends with and stuff like that. Like, um, I don't know.
Do I can't think of somebody that I can 100% say nepotism didn't play a part in their fame. Like, I can't think of anyone who is related to somebody famous
I'm yeah. I'm trying to think
who
of another example of somebody who I had no idea
okay, well, when I
was
first
related.
started watching Stranger Things, I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
know that the person who played
Maya Hawke.
Robin yeah,
Yeah,
played
Maya
Robin
Hawke.
is the daughter of
Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But
I
to
didn't know it
me,
until I didn't know it until I saw someone tweeted back in Twitter days. Someone tweeted saying, "Oh my God, Robin looks just like if Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke had a baby."
yeah. So to me, knowing that now, I think, oh yeah, she definitely definitely opened doors for her.
Yeah, yeah,
But back then, if I don't know, like, but what if somebody was famous like that and they just went to auditions without telling anybody who they are?
right. Or what about, because some people don't, they deliberately use a different last name. Like what's Goldie Hawn's daughter called? The actor
Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson. I don't
But I
know.
think everybody knew that she was her
Yeah,
daughter.
I guess. But I think if you change your last name, that goes some way to try and sort of stand on your own talent and get success based on
And
that. But I
you saw the
suppose,
movie Licorice Pizza, the
yes.
Paul Thomas Anderson movie. The young man who played the lead in that, like his father was that famous actor who died, who was in Magnolia, who was in like a lot of Paul Thomas
Right.
Anderson. Like that's like nepotism after this guy's even dead. Like his
Yeah.
friend, who is a famous film director, picked his son to be the lead in this movie. He probably, there would be millions of people who wanted that role. And, I'm not begrudging this kid. I'm sorry his dad's dead and everything, and it was nice for him to get to work with his dad's friend. But yeah, that's straight up nepotism. No matter, even if nobody even knows who this kid is, right? Like he got that role because of who his dad was, and the power and the position that his father had in the film world. Lily Tomlin in Grease, the famous star of the hit movie Grease.
That's so funny. So hang on. So that's John Travolta's real life sister.
Yeah,
Does she still act?
I
Is
don't
she
think
still
so.
alive? Did she
But
act in a lot of other things?
she also looked quite old, didn't she? And
Maybe,
Lily
yeah.
Tomlin wouldn't have been that old back in 1978 or whatever. So you're thinking of what Lily Allen to look like in the 90s.
Lily Allen. Talking about nepotism.
Oh my God, yeah. But you're talking about Lily Tomlin as you recognize her in your mind's eye in the late 80s and 90s. That's what this woman
Yeah,
looked like in
yeah.
Greece.
Because when she made Big Business, she probably was about as old as John Travolta's sister was
Yeah.
when
So how
she
could
was in
she look
Greece.
that old in
Well,
Greece?
when you're a kid, you don't think about things like that. And also, when you're a kid, you don't, you go to the video store and you rent a video or you rent a film and you don't think about,
You go to the Lily Tomlin section of the Blockbuster.
oh my God, I would be there. If there had been a Lily Tomlin section, I would have been there.
How many can you name 5 Lily Tomlin movies?
Okay, so
Grease.
No, I'm kidding.
Grease 2. Grease 2.
So 9 to 5, Big Business. Oh my God, I don't know. There must be more. Hang on.
This
I'm
is
gonna
so
have to look
funny.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
I love how you're the biggest Lily Tomlin fan in the world, and you can name
I know,
2
I know.
movies.
The Incredible Shrinking Woman. Yeah, that's funny.
Are you looking at a list?
Yeah. Oh, she was in The Player. I forgot that. I quite like The Player. Oh, she was in Shortcuts.
But I'm thinking like Lily Tomlin, for us, it was what, the 80s were her biggest. She was in that famous movie Nashville. 9 to 5.
She was in Tea with Mussolini as well. That was good. With Cher.
She was in Shadows and Fog, that Woody Allen thing with Madonna was in.
Oh, I don't think I ever saw that.
No, I don't think I did either. The Beverly Hillbillies remake in 1993.
I don't know if I saw that either.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've seen a lot of her movies.
Yeah.
I Heart Huckabees, Prairie Home Companion.
I mean, obviously, most recently she's more famous for TV work. Grace and Frankie, but
yeah, they did that movie in a couple of years ago where it was all of those older actors, women actors.
I Heart 80 for Brady or something.
80 for Brady. And Sally Field, Rita Moreno, Jane Fonda, and Lily Tomlin played
Yeah.
like old
It
friends or
didn't it
something.
didn't look that great, but,
No, it looked like Grace and Frankie in movie version.
yeah. Did you watch the last season of Grace and Frankie with Dolly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I did.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's nepotism because Hill and I were having a conversation about nepotism, and he was saying that Michael Polansky is an example of nepotism, and I was like, well, I think it's more of privilege, and I think there's a distinction to be made. And of course, it was
Yeah.
a pedantic showdown here over the definition of nepotism.
You can argue it out on the paddle boards in Italy next
Oh,
week if you
Hill won't
want.
go in the water. He's too scared of
Oh,
that.
really? Scared of what? Sharks?
Well, yeah, everything,
Yeah.
sharks and
Yeah.
did you what's just quickly before we go, what's your take on this Banksy artwork on the Justice Courts or whatever it was in London?
I don't know
Oh,
what
you
you're
haven't
talking
seen the
about.
news?
No,
It's
no.
like the whatever the courts of
Royal
justice
Courts of
are.
Justice?
Yeah, I think it's the Royal Courts of Justice in London.
Hmm.
Banksy spray painted, and it was like a magistrate, you know, the one wearing the wig
Mhm.
with a gavel, and it was a protester holding a placard lying down on the ground, and the Lord Justice or whatever the person is with the gavel and that beating, you know, blood splattering and beating
Mhm.
the protester, and it was
Mhm.
on the wall of the outside, and it was so incredible, like, and shocking. And so the police came and covered it up, and now I think they've spray painted it off the wall. But like people were coming from all over London to see it.
And do you know if it was in response to anything in particular, or was
Well,
it
there's a lot of people being arrested for protesting against
against
the
against Israel?
genocide in Gaza. Yeah.
Do you
So
think, but as Banksy said, it was to do with that,
no, but
or
I think it was very timely. I
you
mean, I
kind of
also
have to
know
read
that
between the
Banksy has
lines and
been very outspoken, well, outspoken in secret about climate activists being arrested and
mm,
jailed. So it's
yeah.
probably a culmination of these things. But at the moment,
Right. I wonder whether it was more just a sort of generalized criticism or critique of abuses of miscarriages of justice
yeah,
or
I
stuff
would
like
say
that.
so.
But
And
yeah,
but you know, on the weekend or the weekend just gone, there was a massive rally for Gaza, and
yeah,
over
yeah,
400 people were arrested
yeah. I know.
and
Mm.
being silenced for standing up against genocide. And so it was very timely for that.
Mm,
How
yeah.
would they, if they determined that that was criminal damage, as Banksy is somewhat a secretive person, how scandalous would it be if they had to bring that artist to court and
I
try
know.
and, you know,
Have a trial,
prosecute
public
them,
trial.
prosecute them for them? Also, talking about, oh, well, I wanted to ask you, do you think that's an effective form of protest to do an art piece like that?
Oh, definitely.
What
Yeah,
does it
I think
do?
I think art because a lot of people disconnect from mainstream media and mainstream news reporting. I
Mhm.
think art in all of its forms does provide a really good medium
Yeah,
or media to transmit messages and to decimate political ideas or ideologies
yeah.
in a way that is more accessible to some people. Um, so yeah, like whether it's song, whether it's music, graffiti, um, yeah,
And
poetry.
talking of song, Billy
Mhm.
Bragg has just released a new song that's a fundraiser for Gaza.
All right.
And so I'm just having a look to see if I can see what it's called. But the Banksy thing, it it was more of an outline. You know, it didn't say Gaza on the placard or anything. You
Mm.
couldn't see, you know, anybody's skin color. It was like, what do you call that? Like where it's like an outline, but like not a profile. I don't know what it's called, but the art term.
Silhouette.
Yeah, more like a silhouette with a little bit of detail.
Right.
And uh,
Well, I think that's
so
clever
yeah,
because
because it's not it's people were being arrested for saying things like Palestine action
yeah,
and things like that. So this is alluding to it and
yeah,
also alluding to other forms of criminal court injustice without actually saying it. So to me, it was quite powerful.
yeah. Like, yeah.
Um,
Well, again, like that. that sort of lack of specificity in art is really good because it allows the viewer or the listener or whatever to project their own narratives or their own ideas onto what it represents. So that's quite clever.
The Billy Bragg song is called "100 Year Hunger."
Hmm.
I don't know who it's raising money for, but I think it's like a medical, emergency medical, group or something, dealing with, the people who are suffering in Gaza and being killed and
Hmm.
injured. But yeah, that's like another way of doing it, like releasing a song, trying to raise funds, trying to, I suppose, sway public opinion or mobilize public opinion. Because I think the majority of people in the UK are horrified by what's going on in Gaza,
Yeah,
but it's about
yeah,
trying to mobilize and get people to take action and to keep it in people's minds, like
yeah,
to because we're sort of like inundated with news about war and genocide all around the world all the time.
yeah. We
It
become
gets
a bit
easier to
sort of
become,
numb to it, don't
yeah,
we?
you become complacent, or you become hopeless, and you think, well, there's nothing I can contribute to this.
Mm.
So,
So have you listened to the Billy Bragg song?
well, no, because I only just found out about it last night, and I haven't had a chance to listen yet.
Okay,
It might be terrible, right?
might be.
No,
Who knows?
I love Billy. Um, I haven't seen him in concert for a while, so.
Yeah, I haven't seen him for years, like
Oh, did I tell you
years and years.
last time we mentioned that band, the band from,
Fortitude Valley.
yeah, they're called Fortitude Valley, but the lead singer or the artist whose band it is from Brisbane.
Hmm.
I posted on, Instagram story saying, "Hey, everyone, listen to this. I love it." And they wrote to me and said, "Oh, 3 out of 4 of us are vegan, and we're all really big fans of yours,"
Oh, really? Oh,
which
cool.
was really sweet. And then I
Yeah.
wrote about it on my blog, and they wrote to me again and said, "Oh, yeah, I'm also subscribed to your blog. Thank you so much for
Oh, no way.
the
Do you
blog
know,
post."
I started listening to the album the other night and I really liked it. I only got heard the first 3 songs, I think, but it's really nice. Got a great
Oh,
sound.
it's incredible, and it's weirdly got a, I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but Brisbane has a real
Yeah,
vibe to it.
yeah, yeah.
The sound. Anyway, they're doing a tour, like a very small tour, and I'm
Okay.
thinking of going to see them, but you wouldn't wanna go to Leeds to see them
They're
'cause
not playing in London?
well, I'm gonna be in Italy.
Oh.
So
So
they're
this is
playing,
happening really soon, is it?
yeah, well, they're doing in some other shows in November as well, but there are
Okay.
some really soon within the next few weeks. But guess where they're playing in Leeds? Do you remember Wharf Chambers?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we did that gig there, that
Oh, yeah,
fundraising gig there. Yeah, they're
yeah,
playing
yeah.
there, so it'd be fun to go back to that.
Oh, that's great.
So, I don't know, like, if you wanna go to Leeds, but you're probably working, you work all
Yeah,
sorts
not
of
on my
hours.
current ridiculous work schedule, no thanks,
Otherwise,
yeah.
I'm looking at going to, Cambridge, possibly, to see
Okay.
them because 'cause they're doing, like, this indie band, like, pop indie all-day festival, so it goes from, like, I don't know, 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the day
Oh, well,
in
let me
this
know what
little
the
in
date
a little
is and
venue
I'll
in
have a look.
Cambridge.
Because Cambridge is quite quick on the train, isn't it?
Oh, it's an hour or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm looking at doing that, but I don't know, like, would Cambridge be the sort of place where you'd wanna stay overnight? Is there anything to do in Cambridge?
Well, our friend Hazel lives there. You could
Yeah.
catch up with Hazel.
Do you
Um,
remember when we did that, I did that Christmas market for Maid and Hackney in, Manor House, and you came and sang as Santa Claus?
oh, yeah.
There was that vegan coffee trader.
Oh, yeah, they're from
Yeah,
Cambridge,
those
aren't
2
they?
guys, they're from Cambridge, and
Yeah.
they've opened a permanent,
Oh, right,
coffee. It's
nice.
called VG Coffee. So if anyone
Yeah.
wants to support a local business in Cambridge, go to, VG Coffee.
Yeah, they were
They're
nice.
very lovely people, and their food was
Yeah,
lovely, and they had all
yeah.
sorts of hot
It's got a
drinks.
lovely botanical garden in Cambridge.
Would that be any good if this was in November or something? Would that be any good?
Mm,
Or
maybe not. I mean, they got a big greenhouse, but yeah.
that
Anyway.
garden I sent you photos from the other day, that Postman Park or Postman Square or whatever it's called,
Mm,
so
mm,
beautiful. And did
yeah.
you know that it has a hero's wall? You know, I sent you those photos of those tiles, and it's
Mhm,
got stories of people who died being heroes.
mhm, mhm.
It is the wildest thing.
Lovely.
Anyway, it was very entertaining to me to go in there, but it's a very beautiful garden, and you should go and see it. All the tree ferns and bamboo
Mm.
and
Yeah, it looked really nice. Well,
and
next week
whatnot.
I'll be in the Genoa, Genova, Orto Botanico.
All right. Well, listen, until next time, drop the names of all your favorite Nepo babies into the comments. We'd like to know your take. And also, if you have a strong opinion one way or another, is wealth, privilege different from nepotism? Are they distinctly different, or is there a lot of crossover?
And is Lily Tomlin really John Travolta's mother?
Or sister? Or both?
All right, folks. Well, you can hit the subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening, so please do so. If you want to find out what I'm up to, you can find me mostly on Instagram at Josh and the Jumpstarts. You can also listen to my music. You can sing as well. You can listen to my music on Spotify and Apple Music, and that's also Josh and the Jumpstarts.
And if you want to find me, you can go to fatgayvegan.com, where I blog daily. You can follow me on social media at fatgayvegan. Or if you would like to send a drone to take photos of me with no shirt on, you can see me in San Fructuoso this week only, 1 week only. And
being eaten by a great white shark.
I'm going to dance with one. I wonder if I should take my Planet of the Apes bust with me to as a decoy for the sharks.
Ryanair will definitely let you bring that on board with no problem.
Well, I'm having enough trouble getting my CPAP on board.
Okay. Well, all right. Until next week, we'll say ciao because we're so Italian now.
Yeah. And the next episode might not be when we're back because I think we have to record it before we go.
No, we have to go and have a drink of water now and then come back and record another episode. We did talk about doing one from Italy, but I don't think logistically it's a likelihood. All right. Until next week, folks. Arrivederci.
Ciao.